Welcome to LunchAssist. We're delighted for you to join us in learning more about civil rights. I'm Jen, and I'm a former child nutrition director, a registered dietitian, and the founder and CEO of LunchAssist. Today, you will get a sneak peek at one of our favorite lessons from the training videos that are available through the LunchAssist PRO membership. If you enjoy this training, then you might want to consider becoming a member of LunchAssist PRO. Here, you can continue to learn with us all year long and gain access to our resource library and training library, where we go through all types of different lessons that are related to school nutrition. In this lesson, we will spend about 10 minutes discussing civil rights. And then at the end, you're invited to take a short quiz and review some of the downloadable resources on this topic, including a copy of these slides, some great sample policies and procedures, and some information about civil rights. Completing the lesson and quiz will count towards 15 minutes of professional development and meet your annual civil rights training requirements for USDA nutrition programs. The goal of this lesson is to learn and identify the general civil rights requirements in school nutrition programs and the reasons why attention to civil rights is so important. We will also provide practical information to help ensure that every student has equal access to our school meal programs. Okay, let's get started. But before we learn more about the civil rights requirements in school nutrition programs, we feel it's important to acknowledge our nation's history and continuous battle to grant equal rights to all citizens. Systemic racism and discrimination have been part of the fabric of our country since its inception. Black men, women, and children were legally enslaved in the United States until the mid-1860s, when the 14th Amendment was passed, officially abolishing slavery. But discrimination and segregation didn't end there, and we have continued to endure the devastating effects of racism ever since. People of many different races and ethnicities have faced discrimination in our country. In the 19th century, the Chinese Exclusion Act prohibited Asians from coming to the United States. And during World War II, Japanese citizens living on the West Coast were sent to internment camps. These historical events set the stage for violence against people of Asian descent that we continue to see in the 21st century. Political events in South America made immigration to the United States popular, but anti-Latino sentiment grew along with waves of immigration. Anti-Latino prejudice has led to illegal deportations, school segregation, and even lynching, often forgotten events that echo the civil rights violations of African Americans in the Jim Crow era South. Segregation and discrimination of students of color in our public schools was legal until 1954, when Brown versus the Board of Education set out to change this. Separate but equal is inherently unequal. This monumental court ruling really helped ignite the civil rights movement. Finally, in 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, which ended segregation in public places and banned employment-based discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It was and still is considered one of the crowning legislative achievements of the civil rights movement. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 dramatically expanded access to the ballot for people of color, including women of color, who often faced systemic discrimination at the polls. While women technically gained the right to vote in 1920 with the 19th Amendment, many women of color were still denied that right for decades through racist laws and voter suppression. Within just a few years of the Voting Rights Act, voter registration and turnout among Black and Latino women surged, and many were able to cast a ballot freely for the first time in their lives. This landmark legislation laid the foundation for the historic election of Black, Latina, Native, and Asian American women to public office, reshaping American political representation. An often forgotten, but no less historic aspect of the civil rights movement was the disability rights activism that led to the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It wasn't until 1990 that protections against discrimination afforded by the Civil Rights Act were expanded to include disability. The purpose of the law is to make sure that people with disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else at work, at school, when using transportation, and when accessing all other places that are open to the public. In 2008, Congress stated that the term disability includes any type of physical or mental impairment, like digestion, cognition, and even sensory issues. In accordance with multiple federal civil rights regulations, school nutrition programs must provide special dietary accommodations for students with disabilities. In the 21st century, we have experienced massive social movements and large protests around the world in light of the continued civil rights issues and discrimination in our society. While there have been many important milestones in the American civil rights journey, we are reminded that many people are still fighting to gain the same civil rights that other citizens are so privileged to have. With recent diversity, equity, and inclusion cuts to federal programs, we feel it's especially important and relevant to talk about equity and inclusion in our conversations about civil rights in this moment. Recently, the federal nondiscrimination statement that appears on child nutrition program materials has changed multiple times. The most current version shown on the screen no longer includes sexual orientation or gender identity as protected classes under federal child nutrition programs. Back in 2022, these protections were explicitly added to the statement, but as of April 2025, they were removed. We're recording this lesson in June 2025, Pride Month. And in this moment, it feels especially important to acknowledge the discrimination that LGBTQ+ communities continue to face. The removal of these protections sends a clear signal, and we believe it's worth drawing attention to. As school nutrition professionals, it's our responsibility to ensure that all of the families and students that we care for are treated with equality, respect, and access to our nutritious meals. We can't follow through on this promise if we hold unconscious biases against any group of program participants. By welcoming all of our program participants with open arms, regardless of our differences, we are honoring and protecting the civil rights of everyone we serve. Part of the way we ensure all students and families have access to our healthy meals is through public notification. By doing this, we are making sure that we are informing families in our school that school meals are available and that we communicate the eligibility or application processes to our community so that all families understand that they may be eligible for free or reduced price meals. But regardless of the way eligibility is determined in your school district, school nutrition programs must send a public media release. And in some states, like Washington, the state agency actually sends this out on behalf of school nutrition programs. In other states, like California, each individual school or district must send a public media release each year. Be sure to check with your state agency to see how this works in your area. We also must collect racial and ethnic data on all of our student population. This is important for ensuring our programs are compliant with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Historically, visual observation and identification were allowable methods for collecting this data, but visual identification of race or ethnicity has not been allowed in child nutrition programs since 2021. Why is that? Because a third party's observation of an individual's appearance is not a reliable means to capture how a person self-identifies their own racial or ethnic identity. The preferred method of obtaining demographic data remains self-identification and self-reporting. This can be accomplished through data submitted by families on enrollment forms, meal applications, or alternative income forms. You can even collect this data from a school database. If you're not sure how your program is collecting racial and ethnic data, check with your nutrition director. Planning culturally relevant meals is just one reason why knowing the student demographics for your district is important. By knowing our community better, we can celebrate the diversity of our families and offer foods that are familiar to the students we serve. What different cultural flavors are represented on your school menus? As you can see, our role is to ensure that our customers' rights are respected and our programs are accessible to all students. It's important to treat everyone equally, but how can we also provide an inclusive environment to all students? Think about ways you can help students have an easy and enjoyable experience in the cafeteria. Being inclusive also means providing food substitutions for our students with disabilities. In California, we use the form on the right side of your screen to document special meal accommodations. Typically, there's a designated person who can help cafeteria staff understand how to make the appropriate food substitutions, such as a school nurse or a registered dietitian. While some special diets are really straightforward, like a peanut allergy request at a nut-free school. Other special dietary accommodations are a bit more complicated. When you get a request, always communicate this with the menu planner and any other health professionals on your team so you can make sure that the meals served to students are safe for them to eat. There's a printable special diets procedure attached to this lesson. Take a look and see how it compares to your own process, and feel free to adapt it for use at your school. If you want to learn more about accommodating students with allergies or special diets, be sure to check out our lessons on this topic. As we've discussed, our programs serve many students and families from many different cultural backgrounds. As such, it's important to provide applications, menus, and other program information in different languages, and to make translations accessible. We have a responsibility to take reasonable steps to ensure that individuals who do not speak English as their primary language, and those who may have a limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English, can access our programs. If a significant proportion of the population we serve uses a primary language other than English, we must make an effort to provide the information in the appropriate language. What are some of the languages spoken by students in your school community? So, what happens if a person feels that there has been a violation of civil rights at your school? Do you have access to a civil rights complaint procedure at your school site? This procedure is usually found in a binder or in your digital file of program policies and procedures. The civil rights complaint procedures outline how the school will handle complaints related to discrimination. Procedures should be available to all staff at each school. If you don't know where to find this information, make a note and make sure to ask your supervisor about it. In the meantime, you can take a look at the sample civil rights procedure in the downloadable resources for this lesson. Your school or district appoints a civil rights coordinator who can help you address any potential civil rights complaints. Do you know who that person is in your school district? If you don't know, ask your nutrition director. To summarize, remember that as school nutrition professionals, it is our duty and responsibility to ensure that all of the students and families we care for are treated with equality, respect, and access to our nutritious meals. That is why we review this information each year through the civil rights training and post our Justice for All poster wherever meals are served. If a person feels that there has been a violation of civil rights at our schools, we must handle complaints in accordance with our civil rights procedure. Civil rights violations can result in investigation by the state agency or a finding during your next USDA administrative review. If you're preparing for an administrative review, be sure to check out the lessons included in the LunchAssist Administrative Review Bootcamp. Following the corresponding policies and procedures ensures that our customers' rights are respected and our programs are equitable for all students. To close, if there's one thing I hope you take away from this today, it's this. Every student deserves access to our nutritious meals, no matter who they are, where they live, what languages they speak, what they look like, whether they have a disability, whether their family has a lot or a little, or how they identify. We proudly welcome all students to our meal programs, regardless of whether they fit into society's boxes or they smash them all together. That brings us to the end of our lesson on civil rights. Thank you for your time and attention to this very important and timely topic. As a reminder, there are a few downloadable resources for you to review, including an agenda, sign-in sheet, and a copy of these slides, and a short quiz. Now is a good time to review those and print them out for your records. Once you complete the quiz, feel free to record 15 minutes of professional development to meet your annual civil rights training requirements and count towards your professional standards tracking for this year. If you enjoyed this training, then we invite you to join LunchAssist PRO, your one-stop shop for the latest resources, news, and training in school nutrition. Learn with us all year long through our fun and informative training videos, which provide all of your annual required professional development. To join, simply follow the link below this video. Thank you again for learning with us today, and thank you for everything you're doing to feed our nation's students. We hope to see you again soon during a future lesson with LunchAssist.